welcome to our first episode of the Brahmas Bullpen. Nick Marek here with you, going to give you all the inside scoop of the Brahmas office heading into this offseason, what the players are doing, where the current players are, what new guys are coming in, all that jazz, and what everybody's up to here this summer. So we're going to hit you with a weekly podcast, if possible, at least on a regular basis, when it's pertinent throughout the summer, to clue you in on everything behind the scenes in Brahma land. And obviously we have a lot to talk about with our first episode, the entire season getting wrapped up. Nick Marek, I'm here with Chad Siewert, our VP, and the man of the hour here joining us for the first show, and he'll be with us all summer long. So Chad, let's jump right into it. What are your thoughts on this season? The Brahmas turning things around in 2014-15, and it was certainly a special year.
Well, thanks, Nick. Yes, it was a special year. Still kind of trying to come to terms with it ending so I wouldn't say early. I mean, the Final Four is by no means early, but I think we all kind of were smelling it and feeling it and thinking that we should be planning a game here come up day after tomorrow. But all in all, it was a great season, night and day from the 13-14 season. I mean, absolutely night and day, top to bottom.
Honestly, that was one thing. I didn't get a chance to experience last year's team coming in, but I kind of heard of everything and all the shuffling that was going on with the rosters and how it was kind of madness for the first half of the season. But, fans kind of, sometimes they forget about that second half of the year last year of going, didn't they go 500 hockey after 2014?
Yeah, I think it was probably a little more than 500 hockey, but it's still, 2013 was nothing short of terrible for us. And it's not because of Dan or Jeff's coaching or anything like that. It's just when we got the franchise, the Tornado franchise that became the Brahmas, we were late to the dance. I mean, every other team in the league had their tryout camps. They'd had the draft. The USHL had already, picked everybody, and we were kind of left scrambling. So 2013 was a bit of a learning curve for us, and then ever since about January 1st of 2014, this franchise has been really something to deal with.
We mentioned the USHL draft. We'll get on that later in the show. One thing I guess I will say about this season is, man, what an enjoyable ride it was. A great group of guys, unbelievable fans. The staffs were in it, the billets were in it, the sponsors were all in it. Everybody was involved. From a season as a whole, I kind of agree with you. Just knowing this team, knowing the way the locker room was set up, how the guys badly wanted this championship. That's the only reason why it's quote-unquote disappointment. But you said it. You're champions of the South in the regular season. You're the champions of the South in the playoffs. You made the Final Four. You were one shot away from going to the finals and hosting it against the Wilderness. So, literally, you win some, you lose some. It comes down to that. You got 3 overtime wins in the playoffs. You lost the last one in overtime. It just happens that way. It wasn't like the team was outplayed. I actually thought the Brahmas were the better team in Game 3. So I don't think these guys have anything to hang their heads on. It's a great group. A lot of them are moving on, which is fantastic, but also a rebuilding year and a chance to see what the Brahmas are really like. Because I'm sure a lot of teams in this league are going to look at Lone Star and being like, they're kind of a fluke. Like, sure, maybe Dan and Jeff are good behind the bench, but look at all the talent they had on paper when they brought in. But sometimes it's not the case. They've molded this team into what it was by the end of the season. So I don't think the future of Brahmaland by any means is in jeopardy. I think if anything, it might help. I think people are going to see exactly how this organization turned around so quickly and are going to want to jump on board to that. So I'm very pleased with the way the season gone. I had a blast. I wish I could be broadcasting like you said in the final week, but I guess we'll watch the teams from Minnesota and hats off to them for making the finals. But guarantee you Brahmas will be right in the mix next year.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question this team will be in the mix. We've got great coaching. We've got a great facility. We've got a very desirable area to play in for a lot of these young men coming in from all over the world. Dallas-Fort Worth is, if I'm going to choose between rural Minnesota and Dallas-Fort Worth, I'm probably going to go with the big city if I'm a young hockey player.
Agree.
but there's
and escape the cold a little bit.
Absolutely. These guys are wearing flip-flops to the rink in January, so
it's pretty funny.
this year was great. I felt like we took sometimes they say you take one step back to take two steps forward, or however that phrase goes. I felt like last year was kind of our step back. We missed the playoffs, and whether you were a Tornado fan, who the Tornado won, 7 championships in
A million.
a short span. So you're used to high-level hockey with the Tornado. Or if you're a Brahmas fan from the Central Hockey League, you're used to Dan Walfong and the Brahmas going deep, deep, deep into the playoffs. Both clubs had championship backgrounds. So to miss the playoffs last year was that step back, but it gave us the long off season, which we didn't even know what to do with ourselves half the time during that summer. It's such a we're used to like a 2-3 month off season, and here we are
3 months later.
It's April 1st, and we've already cleared the office out. But so during that time, it really helped us. We were able to bring in, some staff, and I can't really speak too much about the on ice product. That's a better question for our department, for Jeff and Dan. I mean, that's clearly their specialty.
Absolutely. We'll try to bring them on probably later in the
absolutely.
summer and get some updates on them through camp and whatnot.
But from the off ice standpoint, having a long off season was great because we brought in a veteran, just like Dan brings in all these 94s this year. We had all these 20-year-old guys on the team. We brought in a veteran sales guy with Hunter Van Pelt from Allen, brought him over, and he made an immediate impact. We brought you over from Arizona State, so that was a good thing as well. And
questionable.
Well, yet to be determined, right? No, but bringing in those two things alone, I mean, we had, Amanda in the box office was a big help. The team winning definitely made things a lot easier. And, when the dust settled on the season, we had actually increased our attendance by 19%, which is pretty insane. And I don't have the numbers in front of me, but we were just shy of 1,500 a game in 13-14 season. And this season we were just a couple dozen under 2,000 a night, which is fantastic. I mean, almost a 20% jump in attendance is great. And
not a couple thousand under. You were like barely under.
We were
over 1,900, I thought, a night.
We were over 1,900. It was really close up there. And while we didn't have just giant crowds in the playoffs, everybody that was here was into it.
Yes.
I mean, Sunday it sounded like, I don't know, it sounded like you testing jet aircraft engines in that arena. It was extremely loud in there. Everybody was, hanging on their edge of their seat, banging anything that wasn't, a part of their body. They were just banging sticks everywhere, going crazy. It just kind of stings to leave everybody disappointed at the end.
Yeah, it does. But it comes down to the team, though, too. I mean, the fans let it all out there in that last game, and they wanted this team to go to the next round, but it wasn't like there was any shortage from the fan side. And, I mean, you kind of went through, too, some off ice, but, I mean, just some more to hit on, too. Everybody who works nonstop for us during games, I mean, all the off ice officials putting all their work into it, which, these are some things that aren't, seen every day. You don't realize they're part of the mix as well. Heck, all the producers that help me out, and the camera operators, and our DJ, and all the PA announcers. And Mike Norgard started coming back towards the end of the year quite a bit, and he was our staple.
He was great.
Everybody loved hearing him on the mic, I know. All the sponsors that were involved and would give anything for the Brahmas, and all the billets that made the sacrifices during the year. I mean, it was a great family experience, and I got to see from the Brahmas fans and everybody just, truly how special of a group this was. And now, it kind of gives me a better understanding, too, going to my first off season with this team, what the future's like, and then also kind of how all these sides of the organization are going to come together, and how it's going to form like a powerhouse in the NAHL.
Yeah, we tend to do things around here with a really small staff, and it's like fewer people that know what they're doing really helps translate. You hit on the off-ice officials. Those guys, one thing we'll talk about later, I'm sure, is so we have a franchise in the NA3HL, right, which is right below the NAHL.
Yep.
So they have to have off-ice officials. They've got to have the goal judges and the guys doing the scoreboard and the stats and everything. And our off-ice, it's every weekend. It's every weekend, sometimes 11 a.m. games, sometimes Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then back to their regular. Yeah, so Howard and Brendan were the main cogs. I think, I want to say Howard only missed a couple games at the end.
By the way, Howard,
it's all your fault, Howard.
It's your fault when you lost game 3. It's going around the office.
It's all your
we
fault.
See you this summer, it's your fault. I'm pointing the blame right to you. So hope you enjoyed that trip to Arizona, buddy.
Oh, no. But those guys, really, they worked around the clock. Nobody really sees it, or they don't get thanked enough. So those guys go hard all year. And you went hard, too. I mean, in September, would you broadcast like 12 games by the end of the month?
Oh, yeah, it was crazy. It was great. I love that. So it didn't bother me at all, and I'm just glad everybody was a part of the ride and actually put up with me for that long of time. That's what I'm more impressed about. But, let's talk a little about the NA3 team with Al Rooney and everything. I'll kind of preface it. I know what's going on there, but, Al's signing a lot of guys for next year. I know some of the Brahma fans might be like, well, what is the second team? They kind of come and ask questions. It's our Tier 3 team, so it's right below the NAHL. So the NAHL is Tier 2, NA3 is Tier 3. And actually a lot of those guys from Al's team fed into various NAHL teams. We had a bunch of guys go play for Rio Grande Valley last year for a couple of games. Some made appearances on the Brahmas bench, which you might have been like, oh yeah, that name sounded familiar. Well, there's a reason for it, because he's wearing a Brahma jersey every weekend, just not every single weekend for the Lone Star Brahmas. He's playing for the Texas Brahmas. And you're going to see one of the guys actually on the team already tendered with Dan and Jeff and Devin Pierce. So you'll see a forward on his team almost, at least through camp, if not further. But based on how he dominated that, I wouldn't expect him any less than going earlier. And Rooney really kind of reloaded this team. It's a younger group now. It's going to come in next year, so it's kind of going to be to a degree just like Dan and Jeff's. And they're both going to have a younger group rather than a more veteran group. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how both those organizations and both those teams kind of, or I guess two teams under one organization, how they can work together again and keep that relationship going into next year. Because I have a feeling there's going to be some a lot of inner organization movements next year, just at times, maybe not permanently, but it's always an extra bonus to have.
Well, it's like people ask me all the time about the NA3 and how it works, and the easiest way to explain it is just to be like, imagine if the Texas Rangers had their AAA club that played at the ballpark in Arlington.
Right.
It's exactly that. When
Yep.
the Rangers are on the road, then
Yep.
their AAA team is at home, and it gives coaches. I mean, Rooney comes to many of the practices, and especially once his team finished up in the playoffs, he was there at every one.
Oh yeah, he has as busy of a schedule as Dan and Jeff this summer.
Absolutely, and Dan and Jeff are able to see the NA3 guys. Like, for example, Kurt Thiel, he's a defenseman. He originally came with the Brahmas. Didn't really make the roster in the NA squad. He was kind of relegated down to the NA3, but he practiced with the NA team at least once or twice a week. So he knew Dan's system. He did a great job for Rooney down there. And, when we needed a D-man, he was ready to go, and he knew everything. He wasn't a deer in headlights.
Right,
he was great
right.
for us.
Well, I saw this thing in the Brahmas locker room too. Also, it's just kind of one of those common sayings, but it's like, you got to have the right attitude, and that's the right attitude to have. Is you come in here, if you're a guy like Kurt Thiel, and he played it all right. He played his cards perfectly.
Yep.
He didn't ruin himself. He didn't act bigger than the situation. There were five 1994 birth years on defense who are aging out, or so that's a lot of guys who have 2 more years extra junior hockey experience than he did, and I think Kurt kind of realized that. So he just like, well, let me apples and oranges. Let me just go to the Texas Brahmas and dominate there, and he did. He was a top line defenseman, and now if he wants and things work out, he could feed right back into the NA team.
Yeah, no, he was great. There's a lot of, especially defensively with the big Brahmas. There's a lot of guys you could learn from. Gosh, I mean, you mentioned all the 94s. Well, we've got like Alexei Solovyev, who, and forgive us, Alexei, visiting broadcasters and PA announcers had trouble with that last name forever. But Alexi, he's a 94 with a mountain of experience. I mean, what did he played 200-plus junior games?
He did.
So, I mean, that's a great guy to learn from. He was a Tornado member, so one of the last guys to be with a Tornado, and they come over to make the transition to the Brahmas.
The only one left.
Yeah, I guess that's right, the only one. How about that? And then you've got guys like Santesan, who, was that said right? Or you could call him Santasan.
No, he's Santasan.
Santasan. See, there's another one.
He's the official one.
Sorry, Anton. He, another extremely talented defenseman. Kind of reminded me a little bit of my man Eric Carlson from the Senators.
Okay.
You know, everything comes back to the Sens with me. No,
Swede too. So
Swede. Yeah, good skater, smart guy, very, very intelligent out there, makes good choices. So those two guys are great to learn from. And then, if we want to hit on the defense for a second while we're here, just kind of going around the horn, Steen was he's not a 94, but man, he made a big improvement from last year. I thought he was a completely different player this year, for the better, much better. Very strong, very, very dependable. And then,
the whole defense was
it's solid.
I mean, there really wasn't a player that stood out per se, but they all played the role so well that nobody was like a distraction. Like usually when you get a group like that, if somebody makes a mistake, they'll be the ones that get pointed out. But everybody was on that same level. And even when Storm Wallrap transitioned from forward to defense, he was one of our better defensemen going into the second half of the season. It was unbelievable. Like, where did this guy come from? He was second, third line forward. Now all of a sudden he's like, oh my God, he's playing top line minutes on D because we need to fill a hole with Hansen's injury and all those little it's like a diamond in the rough that you find late in the year, and coaching staff's like, well, I enjoy this. Now I can play off this because I had too many forwards, and now it fits in perfectly.
Yeah, nobody even noticed that he had switched back there. Well, except for the other team. The other teams.
Yeah, him and Thompson were brutal together on this, weren't they?
They're real strong, and they pushed around a lot of guys out there, especially in the playoffs. Storm was a beast. Let's say something about Hayden Hansen. We kind admit it. We all wrote him off, saying he wouldn't play again this year when he broke his arm.
Oh,
There's
absolutely.
no way you're coming back.
Not a chance.
But
at the time, and you saw how severe it was, and 8 weeks later, 8 weeks after breaking an arm,
4 weeks.
Cast off.
Yeah, 4 weeks after he broke it, he's out there in practice in full gear.
He was doing conditioning, he was getting ready, and holy smokes, I mean, he came up to me and said, I can't take a 100% slap shot yet, but I can get pucks through if I need to. I mean, that's crazy. Like, to see that intensity and how much like a guy like Hansen wanted to play, wanted to compete, wanted to win. Mm-hmm. He was technically risking us, further injuring his arm and kind of delaying his off-season regimen rather than he wanted to play right away.
Yeah, so
Utica, he's okay.
Yeah,
he's okay.
He's 100%. No, he told me that he had hoped to be back for the finals, which tells you two things. Tells you, number one, that the boys were confident that they'd make it to the finals. And number two, that guy is just a workhorse. And he came back in the Final Four early, ahead of schedule. So pretty unreal. Now, speaking of defense, Sean Giles.
That was exactly what I wanted to transition to.
I wasn't there, but take us through the Sean Giles goal.
Oh man, I think people know it now. I've been getting a lot of comments actually on that too. But I mean,
what was the phrase?
Put down the desserts and get on the dance floor. Sean Giles just invited the Brahmas to the ball. By the way, spur of the moment thing, just for anybody asking, I was kind of like, well, I think of dancing as like the Final Four and March Madness, like you're dancing on. So I don't know, I just kind of put it together and it just came. But I mean, man, Sean had a cannon on that one, and he's an example of somebody who's a super hard worker. He'll stay 20 to 30 minutes after every single practice. He's sticking on the ice to train. He's not a guy who like Asoleviev, who put 12 goals I think this year. Mm-hmm. Giles' points came. He had a handful of them, but his role wasn't to give that critical game leading go ahead goal. But he did it. He did it at the in a clinching game on the road in overtime against the biggest rivals potentially in the South Division, at least their hardest competition because they were the 1-2 seeds. And he did it against a great group in Topeka with the Roadrunners. So it transitions kind of right into our next point we wanted to talk about are what guys are coming back and how's this roster kind of going to shape up for next year. Out of all those names we mentioned on defense, literally every single one of them except for Kurt Thiel is gone or could be gone, except for maybe Giles and maybe Steen. Those are the two guys on defense besides Kurt Thiel who could potentially be back next year because all the other ones are off to college or aged out of their junior hockey careers. So, I mean, Giles had a chance to do something really big next year if he comes back to the NAHL. I do know he's going off to a USHL camp, so we'll touch on that a little bit more in a second. But, it's a chance for players to get a chance to move up and advance their hockey career. But heck, if Giles comes back, I know Dan and Jeff are going to have they're going to have a hard time not putting an A or a C on his jersey. I will tell you that much.
Well, yeah, this brings me to a point. So every year when you're in the front office, at the end of the season, I get phone calls, emails, Facebook messages, people popping in, and they want to know who's coming back, and they'll start running through the roster. Well, in the CHL, it was different because you can't age out. I mean,
right, unless you retire.
No, I think Claude Lemieux played for the Arizona Sundogs at age 46 or something ridiculous like that. It might have been a publicity stunt, but whatever. So who's going to come back in the CHL? It's pretty easy. I mean,
right. You
could have the whole team back, and the successful teams were the ones that stuck together. For us in the NA, it's just so different. Not only, it's just the USHL. Like guys could go up, like you talked about, Giles and Steen, and getting a shot up at the USHL, but there's other leagues. Guys could go to the BCHL.
Right.
They could go all over. They could go to college.
Yeah.
They could go play for a pro team.
Yeah.
It's nuts. So the off season is really hard to follow the players.
Sometimes I get lost at all the different leagues there are and teams, and that's where we leave it to Dan and Jeff mainly, and just have them kind of walk it through.
Yeah, and that's where things like this podcast will help out to help kind of iron out those things and help people understand so that when the season does get here, everybody knows kind of what's going on.
Man, you don't even know all of them.
I don't have it. I'm in the dark completely on a lot of these things.
I'll kind of go through the list, or at least the basic points. I do know for players to return, that each team in the league has a protected player list. And those are everybody who is not aging out and was on your active roster towards the end of the season,
right?
At least in our league. So all the 95s, 96s, 97s, if you had 98, they'd all be protected. Johan Steen, he's a guy that was drafted by the USHL, the only current Brahma too. He went third round to Omaha, and they're in a defensive, they're in some trouble. So here's how the USHL thing is gonna break down. Johan Steen is gonna try out for Omaha on June 4th through June 7th, which is right around the corner. It's unbelievable how quick of a turnaround this is for next season. So these guys get 2 days to rest, and they're pretty much back doing their pregame skates and preparing for camp.
Enjoy both days of your off season.
Yeah, pretty much. It's them clearing out their locker room too, for the most part, which makes it even worse. But he has a chance to make that team. If he, for some reason, he didn't, he could still come back to the NAHL, and Dan and Jeff have his rights with us. So it doesn't necessarily mean if they're going on to the USHL camps or anything, they're gone for good. They could still come back. But obviously, if they make the team, we personally in the front office want to see them there, because that means they're moving up. They're doing what they had to here. They're taking care of business, and now they're in a slightly better level. I know in Youngstown, I know we have a good relationship with them. We got Larson from them this year. The past year we got Sebastian Vidmar. Obviously that panned out. I know Liam Sturtzinger and Sean Giles are both going to the Youngstown camp. That's June 10th to June 14th. So the roster will be finalized on the 14th. Basically, for USHL camps, they have about 100 players, if not to 120, something like that. And they have to trim that down to 30. So they have 3 days to evaluate these guys. Pretty much the same thing that we have as well in the NAHL. Is you're going to get over 100 players, and you're going to have just 3 days to look at them. You're going to assemble an all-star team at the end of those camps, and you're going to say, okay, I want to see the best basically 45, 50 skaters, whatever, so you can make your final cuts out of it. And then those 30 will ride with that team through the USHL season until they have to trim down later. It's confusing, but 30 go on to their team, and then in October they have to trim the roster more, which is why guys like Andren and Larson came to us this year.
Correct.
And then the last one, so those are the 3 Brahmas going on. And then also A.J. Vanderbeck, he was drafted by Des Moines before last season, almost made their team but came to us. So we still have his rights because he's young enough, but he will also be going to the Des Moines Buccaneers for their camp this summer as well, and has a good chance of making that team before he goes to Colorado College in 2016. So 4 Brahmas, and then 1 tender of Brandon Estes as well. He will be going to Youngstown camp with Sean Giles and Liam Sturtzinger, and could potentially make that one. But should he not, he'll still be an affiliated player, and then the USHL would own his rights, but he could still come back and play for the Brahmas next season.
So, tenders. A lot of people ask,
Yes.
what are tenders? They ask that a lot of us during the games, some of the fans. So, it's players that we have the rights to in the North America. Should they choose to play in the
Right.
North American Hockey League next year, we have the rights.
Exactly.
And the cool thing about it, like Estes, you mentioned Estes. So Estes, he practiced with us, 24 times?
Yeah, he actually played a game in Amarillo, I think. Him and his teammates, the Dallas Elite Stars, it was Brandon Estes, Carson Kelly, and Troy York. York and Kelly are both forwards, Estes the defenseman. Those 3 guys all signed a tender with us, so if they come to the league, they would play with us, which is great because now we're taking in-state, we're keeping it local. They already have their families here.
Well, they already know a little bit of the system.
They know everything. They literally played a game for the Brahmas for Dan and Jeff last year.
Yeah.
And now it's a chance for them to potentially take maybe a little bit more leadership roles next year and develop. So we have those coming in. We have forward Devin Pierce, that I mentioned earlier, from the Owls Texas Brahmas team. He had 19 goals in 32 regular season games. A couple more forwards. You're going to have Matt Christian of the Omaha AAA U18 team. Dan actually watched him at the Top Prospects tournament back in, when was that, December, January? I forgot.
Somewhere around there. It was when it was cold.
Yeah, so that's when Dan realized him. He's a big body.
Yeah.
He's 6'1", but plays bigger. I know Dan liked him because he has a great shot too, and he'll kind of fit right into the physical role. Also, we just signed a couple weeks ago Joey Fallon to a tender from the CCHL. The CCHL, another one of those leagues, the Central Canada Hockey League, that produced Hayden Hansen, Quinn Carroll, and Caleb Thompson for our team this year.
Yeah,
so
there's
big guys come from that league.
There's a cool video. What was it called? The Making of a Royal.
Yes.
That was on NHL.com.
Yes.
So if you go to our Facebook page, and there's a lot going on there, but you scroll down, you'll find a little video that was done from the NHL Network on Joey Fallon.
We
interviews.
His article too.
Yeah, interviews with him and his dad, his coaches, and some game clips. So yeah, smaller guy, 5'7". He's
34 goals in 61 games though. Unreal.
Oh, yeah. And he's at least he portrays himself as kind of a grinder, kind of a guy that go in the corners. So
when I talk to him, he's like, everybody kind of looks over me because of my size of being the 5'7", but he's like, I'm almost 200 pounds. Like, I will put a shoulder guys in the corner, and they don't realize I have that grit to my game. So he's actually going to be kind of one of those like silent heroes possibly. And he's a 95, so this will be his last year of junior hockey. So again, one of those guys trying to make one more final run. He said he wants to win a championship.
If he scores 30 goals, he's not really that silent though.
Good point.
Making big waves. But yeah, we're excited about Fallon. Looks like a lot of good stuff coming out of him.
So we have one defenseman. What is that? 5 forwards. Mm-hmm. And then 1 goaltender, Darian Hansen. He was a teammate of Matt Christian at Omaha. He's a 6'3" goaltender, so he's gonna look as tall as Kupski did pretty much this year.
And going back to what I said about these guys like Estes coming and practicing with us, you remember Hansen came out. He flew out here with his dad, and everybody said he looked pretty darn solid. So, let him get his feet kind of wet in the NA, and I think he'll be a great addition to the squad.
yeah, he was even in the locker room too for all the pregame speeches and got the full kind of rundown and gelled really well. Obviously, he's going to be more of a fly on the wall because he doesn't want to interrupt the season. But yeah, he was out there taking reps with TJ and Jake during the season when they were practicing, like you said. And hopefully he'll fill. He's got some big shoes to fill with those two, so hopefully he'll fit in right away. But then that kind of leads me to, I guess, a random question, even for you, Chad. But out of all those guys that, we're losing a lot in defense, but there's only one defensive tender. So I know people are going to ask this, like, how's the defense looking? Well, a lot of it's to be done in the draft coming up in the, in June 9th for the NAHL draft, which we'll definitely keep you posted on that. But I'm expecting quite a few defensemen will probably be drafted by this team to try to fill those holes on the back end for Brahmas.
I would imagine. It's hard to say. I mean, not only will we draft strong, but at these camps, I mean, there's guys that the coaches are looking at. I mean, you heard Coach Potter talking to a coach or an agent or somebody today about a defenseman. He seemed pretty excited. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of spots to fill, but
here's one thing I do know too. Extra side thought for the fans. Each team has three. You're allowed 3 foreign players, right?
I think 4.
4? Okay. I thought it was 3 because Alexi and Steen were, they were given the okay of being Texans.
Yeah.
Obviously Steen is, but.
Alexi has been in the Dallas area at least 5 years.
Yeah,
so
yeah. I think it's
maybe
3.
It's 3.
I think it's 3. So you could see some new foreigners
right
coming in and playing. They have to fill the roles of Larson and Vidmar for sure. We'll find out about Andrew, and he's still protected, but again, he's a guy that might go to the USHL next year. But I know for a fact he said he wants to get a college commitment and scholarship, and he wants to play in college. So I'm like, any chance of you playing in Sweden and you stay there? He said, no, I don't plan on it. I mean, I really want to get a college scholarship.
Well, and hold on that thought, because here's the thing that I noticed that maybe some fans picked up on this year. You probably don't see because you're in the booth on the call, so you're busy and oblivious to anything that's happening that's not on the ice. But we have so many college scouts and college coaches coming through here, and it's I heard Coach Potter say that it's a lot easier to get to DFW Airport than it is maybe Austin, Minnesota, or Fairbanks, Alaska. So when we have these teams come through, whether or not a college coach or scout is scouting anybody directly on our team, they may be watching somebody from when we played Topeka. What was their goalie?
Yeah, Matej Tomek. He's potentially an NHL guy.
We had 5 NHL scouts here at that game. I mean, it was insane.
Yeah, but then all of a sudden now a couple Brahmas came on their radar, and who knows? Maybe this year's Brahmas, some guys from this year's team will be in the NHL, at least sign a contract in maybe in the coming months, coming years. Who knows? Like there's potential on this roster.
So it's another good reason to play for the Brahmas, and it's a good reason to expect many more Division I signings.
Oh, got that right. Well, even with the camp too, and you mentioned location, that's why Top Prospects tournament is held here. Top Prospect Hockey, they run the second year, I think.
Yeah.
And they have they have USHL scouts, they have Division I scouts, they have I think a handful of NHL guys who come here as well, and then they look at players who are playing junior hockey and trying to make the Brahmas team maybe, or it's a good chance for Dan and Jeff to get a first sneak peek at them. But it's just overall, we could have guys coming from the Wenatchee Wild, who knows?
Sure.
Just to get their name out if they're young enough and they're still eligible, which I guess, just by me throwing out that name, brought me to one of our final points we want to talk about. All the teams that are shifting around this league, because it is crazy.
Oh, yeah. Well, every year in the off season, it's the silly season.
Very silly season. We had a team in Washington in the South.
Yeah, last year really the only real move that was going down was Wenatchee moving to the South. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of team movement. This year it seems like there's quite a bit more relocation talk. I mean, we've already got, the New Jersey Junior Titans.
So the Junior Titans and the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Barons.
Oh, yeah. The Scranton Wilkes-Barre Barons.
Whose logo looks like a family crest. Did you look at it ever?
I didn't say.
It's crazy. It's okay.
I just think of The Office when I think of Scranton, Pennsylvania. No, I love it. But yeah, so this season there's gonna be a lot of movement, and fans will come up to me all the time and say, "When are we gonna see a team back in Shreveport, or when are we gonna see a team in Laredo or
Tulsa, Oklahoma City?
Yeah, I mean,
Heck, Austin,
those
San
are great,
Antonio, Houston.
great questions for the league commissioner, but I don't think next year is the is the answer on those. But those are great markets, and eventually hockey will return to those spots. Who knows? I mean, it could be sooner than you think.
I mean, we're still hearing rumors. I mean, all that we know is we're hearing a lot of rumors, and some from just like fans who I think start this, but somehow it gets around and word spreads like wildfire. We do know this is not a rumor. The Wenatchee Wild are gone. They're not in the NAHL anymore, so they moved to the BCHL, where they tried to go last year, but last efforts, they kind of stuck around the NAHL. I guess they couldn't tie things together in the final months. So they are out of our league, which means there's now down to 7 teams in the South. And now the hottest story seems to be about the Topeka Roadrunners and where they're going to end up, if they're going to stay. I do know they want to stay, 100%. I know they don't want to relocate because they don't, it's brutal enough to, as you were saying, trying to go from CHL to NAHL and show people that, like, it's not that different. Now you have to relocate and then introduce an entirely new team to a new community. Sometimes it's tough.
It's tough.
Like, if you went to Shreveport, they're going to be like, "Where's the Mudbugs? Who's this Shreveport Roadrunners team?"
You'd have to rename it. I mean, you can't be a Roadrunner in Louisiana. that just wouldn't make any sense. But yeah, I mean, that's the crazy thing with like minor league sports and junior sports and everything. It's teams move around a little bit, and sometimes fans get used to one thing, and then boom, the rug comes out from underneath it, and they got to get used to something else. But it'll be interesting to watch. The schedule came out really early last year. I want to say it was in June that we knew our schedule for the year, which is another thing that helped us. We could plan all of our promotional events really early and get on all of our marketing materials, our pocket schedules and posters and all that kind of stuff. This year, I'm just taking a guess. I haven't talked to the league, but I would imagine that it's going to be a little bit later before we see a schedule.
Well, especially with all these teams possibly making more moves, and
right.
I know they're speculating about maybe some more moves to the New York area or New Jersey area. I know they went to the Titans, but maybe we'll see a New York team. Or I mean, the Michigan Warriors are gone. That's a team that had to leave. The Keystone Ice Miners during the season they folded, and the league controlled them into the playoffs to finish their year smoothly. So
But it's not.
It was hectic.
It's not just junior hockey. I mean, look at the American Hockey League.
That's true.
It's getting a complete makeover next year. I mean, it's nuts.
That's an understatement.
Yeah,
people are moving literally cross country to change affiliations or go up from the ECHL to the AHL and take this NHL team. It's wild.
It is wild. So it's hard to follow, but if you're into it, I'm sure you have no problem.
I know our podcast is running long here. We wanted to keep you up to date early. College commitments right now up to this point for the current team, there are 8. We have 8 NCAA commitments as of May 12th. What's the date today? 13th. May 13th. As of May 13th, there's 8 college commitments. If you include Jacob Nahama, goaltender from last year, you could say there's 9 because he's going to Colorado College with Vanderbeck as well. But that number could go up in couple of weeks.
It will go up.
So fans always ask that. They say, "Are these guys not going to college then?" And it's a brutal process sometimes for these skaters going into the summer.
Yeah, I mean, for most of them, the ultimate goal is to get that big, huge D1 commit, like Jake and Sebastian got Union College, who won the national championship a couple years ago. There's plenty of schools talking to guys off our roster. I think several of our players did themselves favors with strong play in the playoffs, and so we'll see.
People want winning team. They want winning players on winning teams.
Well, players with experience, postseason experience.
All those little things help.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to watch that as well. I know we've got a poster plan that we got to hold off on until we can see if some things come through. But it'll be interesting also, and I'm sure the Tornado fans over the years are used to this, but for us in Brahma land, it'll be interesting to watch some of these college games now, knowing that you've got like Union watching Jake and Sebastian. I want to see the Union versus Merrimack matchup. That'll be interesting.
That is coming up this year, by the way.
Yeah, because we've got Carl and Larson on
Yep.
Merrimack,
Yep.
along with Larson's older brother. So that'll be an interesting dynamic to watch. But yeah, stay tuned. As soon as we have the commitments, we'll release them for sure.
Absolutely.
And we'll do a comprehensive draft recap, of course, and all sorts of other fun little tidbits along the way.
Oh yeah, we'll keep you up with the camps and who's maybe how big the roster size is now in a couple weeks. But we went over a lot. I mean, I think hope we clued you in enough.
So here's a question for Nick: what was your favorite one favorite moment of the year?
Ooh, brutal.
We can go broadcast only. One thing that you're
from the game standpoint.
Yeah.
Wow. Probably. It's a little bit maybe not expected, but maybe just that first playoff experience that I got going to Wenatchee and seeing them take the sweep over the Wild, and that was the last game that was played for them in the NAHL.
Yeah.
And the Brahmas won that and 3-0.
Sent them packing.
Yeah, sent them home packing. So I think that'll be special for me, and I'll always remember. Even though it wasn't it wasn't the craziest game, it was just we just came out on top. But it's one of those memories that it's first playoff experience and first clinch. So pretty cool. How about you? If you had, I mean, you've been around this forever, but second year in the league, what was your favorite moment of this year since you were off the ice? How about just with either a game or something just around when you're walking around NYTEX?
Boy, I tell you what, that's a hard one because there's a lot that goes on around the rink. Some ridiculous and some
my job's easy
silly.
When the puck drops. Yours is nonstop.
I tell you, I think that my favorite moment was Military Appreciation Night.
Okay.
So that was November 27th.
Yep.
We had a young man, the puck dropper, young man from the Marines, that he's medically retired. He had lost a leg, and he got to come into the team. And nobody goes into the room before a game. That's just it doesn't.
Locker
7
room,
years,
right?
yeah, the locker room. 7 years here, I've been in there like twice, and it's only because of a special reason. So Dan had him say the little speech to the guys before they went on the ice, and he gave them a pretty stirring speech. Win one for me. I can't play hockey. I've got one leg. You guys go out there and kick some ass for me. That was pretty cool because the guys were really fired up. And then what did we do in that game? I don't have the stats in front of it. It was a
5-1.
It was a blowout. So seeing a hero out there, really enjoying and living vicariously through the team was awesome. So probably that for my favorite moment, but it's tough. There's a lot to choose from.
I know we gained a Brahma fan from that night too. He
of
said
course.
He had an absolute blast.
Of course.
And obviously to all the veterans and those with our military and service and Army, I mean, thank you guys all so much for making a hockey season possible and standing up for us. So
those guys go to war while we schlep it around a cold hockey rink.
It is crazy.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. I can never wrap my mind around it.
No.
I wouldn't have the courage to do things like that. Personally.
No, me either. So
that's why hats off and
definitely.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, so I look forward to Military Appreciation Night this coming year.
Okay,
We'll do something big and look forward to that. And also, I'd tie in that you didn't get to see. We had the Order of the Purple Heart here on that game, and they had the wall that had every soldier who had been lost in combat from the state of Texas.
I did see that. I actually walked through it, and it was.
So it's kind of disgusting to see that many people, that many names, but
it
puts you in perspective.
It does, and it's inspiring in a way. You see all those people that fought for us, not even knowing who Chad Siewert, Nick Merrick. They have no clue.
No.
But they're out there every day, and they're risking their lives, and It's just something special too to see that and how the fans. I actually did get to go before the broadcast and just walk down it and I read a handful of names and they had a couple stories out there too and I spoke to the gentleman. But things like that when I love personally when you could bring things like that to the rink and make it more of a
human,
real life and human experience.
Yeah.
Wow,
so
this went to 180, didn't it? Talking about hockey to.
Well. It was a good moment. So next year got a lot to look forward to. It's a long off season, but really it's not really that long because we're almost to June. So
Camp for the Brahmas, by the way, May 29th to the 31st. It's in Illinois, Orland Park, but first chance the coaching staff of Dan, Jeff, Al all get a chance to see some potential future Brahmas. So we'll definitely hit you up with another podcast in the Brahma Bullpen after that. But I guess we could say a wrap to round one.
there
What do
you
you
go.
think?
That's great.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us. Nick Marek, Chad Siewert here with you in our first episode of the Brahma Bullpen, but we will be back with plenty more throughout the offseason and even in the next year. So hopefully you guys welcome us every week, and we will keep bringing you some Brahma news and all that's happening. But I guess until our next episode, you guys have a great rest of time, and we will see you back here soon.
All right.